Hi, everybody, and welcome to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds, a weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and a comprehensive guide on how not to be taken for all you're worth during your next trip to Ferenginar. My name's Nick Farrow.
And I'm Mike Hilty.
How you doing today, Mike?
It's cold. It's cold. I hate this, but that's what happens in October. So I don't think I should be too upset, but I'm going to be because I just spent an hour outside at 8:30 in the morning watching 6-year-olds play soccer. So
6-year-olds playing soccer at 8 in the morning on a cold day. No fair.
hmm, I wonder who would be like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So how
Camping people. Camping people love being outside in the morning when it's cold.
fools.
Bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, we are definitely not campers here. My dad, he has a giant RV. Like, we're going camping. I'm like, no, you're going glamping. What's glamping? How are you doing?
Oh, not bad. My morning was also quite early, although not as. I had to go get the kids from my in-laws' house. They spent the night. It was
Ooh.
great. Me and my wife went down to Philly to see a show. We saw The Greatest Generation, a Star Trek podcast live on stage. I was taking notes. Like this is how you do it professionally, and then in how many years maybe we could go on tour. But that's actually something my wife is. She's like, "Is this what you're?" I'm like, "No, I will never want to go on tour with a podcast." But it was called the Share Your Embarrassment Tour. So everybody in the room was definitely a little bit embarrassed to be at a Star Trek podcast live. At we went to it was at a city winery. It was a pretty
Ooh.
nice little place. The food was a little small, but tasty. So we had a good time. It was really fun.
Is your wife a Star Trek fan?
She sort of is, actually. One of the things she prided herself on, although she would definitely not describe it that way, is that when we first met, she just all she had to do was watch the first maybe like minute of an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. She could tell you anything that happened that. She's like, she knew that episode by heart. She used to have all of TNG kind of memorized. So like that was one of the shows that we bonded over when we started dating. We like what was it, BBC America used to play 18-hour blocks of Star Trek The Next Generation. So we would just turn it on and just watch it in the background, have it playing. So we would watch all those. And then she also watched the movies growing up. She actually had this beautiful VHS box set of all the Star Trek movies. On the side of each box, when you put them next to each other, it makes a picture of the Enterprise. We actually have it on display in our home.
What's a VHS tape?
Ah, yeah, well, you should know a VHS, but
I'm
for our
just
younger
kidding. I
audiences,
know. I know. We were cleaning the basement up recently, and my daughter found an old copy of George of the Jungle that I have on VHS.
excellent.
And she was like, what is this? It will not go in our DVD player. What am I supposed to
Oh,
do with this?
my daughter doesn't know how to work DVDs. She wanted to watch Beetlejuice the other day. So she pulls the disc out. She's like, How? What do I do?" I'm like, "You put the disc in the tray after it comes out." She goes, "Which way do I put it?" There's two sides. I'm like, "Oh God."
Over the summer, we had an issue with our internet because Comcast, bless them, I guess, somebody, I think maybe the landscapers, cut the Comcast line on
Oh,
accident,
I remember you telling me about that.
and we did not have internet for 2 weeks.
Nightmare.
And calm down, not a nightmare. You
It's a
know,
nightmare.
you and I spent at least the first 10 years of our lives without
No,
internet.
no, no, no. It's not a nightmare for me. It's a
Oh,
nightmare having to put up with the children.
so we ended up going to the library and finding DVDs. You want to know what she picked for her DVDs to watch? Bluey. She picked Bluey.
Nice.
She's seen all of these Bluey episodes, but she still felt the need to watch it and to rent it from our library. So we get home. We had to find the Blu-ray player because we're pretty much exclusively streaming on everything. And then Instructing my 6-year-old on how to use the Blu-ray player was taxing, to say the least. So, do you think we should get into the episode?
I say let's do it. This week we'll be going over season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 6, Parth Ferengi's Heart Place.
Once upon a time. Now this is a story all about how.
Have you ever had a dream you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
We open this week on the lower decks of a Ferengi vessel, and I thought that was pretty cool. That makes Klingon, Romulan, Orion, and Ferengi. So I've got my heart set on Cardassian next. The Cardassians were the bad guys in Deep Space Nine.
I was about to say,
I would love to see them.
You're rooting for their ship to get destroyed next, or one of their ships to get destroyed.
I'm looking for a highbrow Kardashian joke. Everybody, like they go to the Cardassian lower decks, and it's Gull, Kim, Kardashian, something like that. I mean, everyone else has made the joke. Why not lower decks? So
fair enough.
I called it last week. I was like, I saw the title. I'm like, oh my god, I really hope we see a Ferengi lower decks, and we did. And so they're sorting through weapons also, which is, I was like, all right, I guess we're recycling the idea from the Orions. The Ferengi lower deckers are sorting through crates of weapons, and one of them, whose name is Jeef, is annoyed that they're getting rid of the weapon.
My name is Jeff.
Where's the Jeef?
I don't like Skippy peanut butter. I like Jeef peanut butter. So he's upset that they're getting rid of the weapons because they could be selling these weapons for a very sweet, sweet profit. The Ferengi, for those of you unaware, are
like me. I'm completely unaware.
Yes. Let's get into the Ferengi here. A quick, brief science lesson. The Ferengi are a species of aliens. If you've never seen them, they have giant ears on the sides of their heads. They've got a giant forehead. The Ferengis are all about money and profit and business. They love
Business. It is the American way.
It is the Ferengi way. When you go to a Ferengi's home, you have to pay some money.
Please place your imprint on the legal waivers and deposit your admission fee in the box by the door. Remember, my house is my house.
And the person coming to visit goes, yes.
Has our its contents.
And you see that throughout the episode, and we'll get into how the Ferengi find different ways of nickel and diming you. But that's their whole shtick. They love money and business and swindling others. So Jeef is super mad because, everybody knows that the weapons business is quite lucrative. His companion explains that the new Grand Nagus says that equality and hospitality are more profitable in the long run. But Jeef doesn't like this.
I want to be rich now.
As he's going through, he pulls out a portable Genesis weapon device. For those of you who've seen Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, you know the Genesis weapon. But this one's little and easy to bring places, I guess. I guess they started using it as a common, we terraform planets with this thing now. It's 100 years later.
But yeah, that makes sense with the evolution of technology. Yeah.
Smaller, more portable. It works.
According to myth, the Earth was created in 6 days. Now watch out. Here comes Genesis. We'll do it for you in 6 minutes.
So Jeef wants to sell. He pulls out the portable Genesis device and suggests they could sell it to buy their own ship, maybe even a fleet. These things go for good money. But they're interrupted by a red alert. As per usual, only this time, before Jeef leaves, he says menacingly, right on time. Dun, dun, dun. If this is a big moment, if you've been following along and curious about the mysterious ship, so there's clearly someone on board it who is able to get in cahoots with the Ferengi.
I was very curious about that. That seemed odd. Maybe that's a clue somehow. Yeah. Maybe it's a clue you understand. I understand nothing. So
as far as I'm aware, whoever's on that ship is able to contact other people. It feels like because they didn't save Jeef, although I'm still convinced that they're not killing everybody on board, that they're beaming them out and keeping them. But if they do blow them up, RIP Jeef, he was totally double-crossed. They clearly want something, and the Ferengi are always out to make a profit. On the bridge, the captain and his first mate are debating what to do, and the one brings up the merits of the rules of acquisition, which you'll hear a couple more times this episode. The Ferengi have a long list that they often cite called the rules of acquisition, and they're all essentially just like different rules to follow to succeed in business. And Jeef's starting to get annoyed at the indecision and is a little too vocal, which turns the ear of the captain, and he gets pissed at him. And he yells at him, he's only there as a favor to his cousin. As they're arguing, the ship does the thing where it messes with their shields and it takes aim and begins to fire. And at that point, Jeef insists that they told me we would make a profit, just as the Ferengi ship is blasted to bits. So there you go. There's your breadcrumb for the week. There's someone on board who's looking to trick people into getting their ships blown up.
It's starting to get a little annoying. We're 2/3 of the way through this, and it's literally the same thing over and over again. I guess at the same time, I think the thing that I find most interesting about it is getting to see the lower decks crew of all of these ships. I do like seeing that. But the way that this all happens, it feels like this is just how it's going to be the rest of the season.
The dropping of the breadcrumb this week feels good. Last week we didn't get a pre-roll. It was the week before that we saw the Orions. It's like a catch-22. I think it is starting to get a little too repetitive. I love seeing the lower decks of a different I'm hoping we see a lower decks of a different alien ship next week, but like it's hard to say. If my theory that it's Badgie plays out, then it might all come to a head next week, and that'll be it. Like this week we got that big breadcrumb, and next week there's the problem solved. If not, then we could get maybe 2 more. There's 4 more episodes. Yeah, I mean, I would hope 2 more times, not 4 more times.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like I get what you're saying. I think they should slow it down. If they do it more than 2 more episodes, it will officially be too repetitive. At the very least, they need to do something different. Like not just here's the lower decks. They get called to the bridge with a red alert. The bridge gets destroyed. Do something else. Give us a little bit more. Maybe that's what they're gonna do.
Maybe the next time they do show them beaming people off the ship. Or something.
Maybe the next episode, it's the Cerritos that runs into it. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Anywho, meanwhile, we come back from the opening credits to see the USS Toronto and the Cerritos in orbit above a planet. We get a captain's log from Freeman that informs us that they're on a mission to Ferenginar because the Ferengi have submitted a formal application to join the Federation. Context, are they not part of the Federation normally?
No. So the Federation consists of many, many planets and alien species, but a lot of the aliens that we do see throughout Star Trek aren't actually members of the Federation. One of the big plot points of Deep Space Nine was that they wanted the Bajorans to join Starfleet, which is why they stationed Starfleet officers on the station as like kind of like, hey, we'll help you fix this up and protect you and let you use resources if you agree to join the Federation and be on our team. So like the Klingons are allies of the Federation, but not members of the Federation. A lot of aliens that you see, like if they're working in Starfleet, they typically are members of the Federation, but that's not necessarily a prerequisite because like one of the Ferengi characters, Nog from Deep Space Nine, he eventually joins Starfleet and becomes an officer. So like Orions aren't members, Romulans aren't members, Klingons aren't members, Ferengi aren't.
Noted. Cool. Appreciate
but if
that.
the Ferengi join, that's a big get. Earth and the Federation are kind of all post scarcity because of replicators, but the Ferengi, even though the replicators exist, they still very much run on a business model where, you know, the more profits, the better.
Appreciate that context as always. There are some ensigns setting up the conference room of the Toronto with a big bowl of gag.
A traditional Klingon dish made of live worms.
But of course, an Enterprise-shaped charcuterie board and some other assorted appetizers that look rather disgusting.
Yeah, they did. They were all really slimy looking.
Yeah, a little bit. The alliance could benefit the entire quadrant, so Freeman is pleased with being included. Admiral Mr. Clean, is acting rather cocky regarding how fast the papers will be signed, and Freeman is trying to instill a sense of caution in him, but he won't hear it because the new Grand Nagus has created a different political environment on Ferenginar. Lots of progressive freedom.
They don't typically do that. Let's just put it this way. Up until maybe 5-10 years ago in the Star Trek timeline, women weren't allowed to speak with strange men and also weren't allowed to wear clothes. So they didn't exactly have rights. That changed when somebody's mom got involved.
What a
We'll
time to be alive, right? So he also indicates that the mysterious ship has been destroying Ferengi vessels all across their trade routes, and the new Grand Nagus is desperate for Federation resources. Seems like a good deal for them, so why not? The Grand Nagus is announced by a Ferengi attendant, and in walks Rom and Lita, wife and first attendant from Deep Space Nine.
Rom and Lita are there. I was so excited because they are very big characters in Deep Space Nine. Rom is Quark's brother. So you've heard of Quark before. He was a bartender in Quark's bar, and their mom actually married the old Grand Nagus. And before the old Grand Nagus retired, there was an episode of Deep Space Nine where he went to the station. He informed them that he had a big announcement and he was going to announce the next Grand Nagus. He was played by Wallace Shawn, the one and only. He was great. And so he has a heart attack while he's there. And so they all assume that he's going to tell Quark's the new Grand Nagus. But then when he finally comes to by the end, he's like, nah, I'm making Rom. Rom's the new Grand Nagus. So that was a really fun little twist in that episode because Rom has always been kind of like a doofy younger brother type who is a little slow, and you wouldn't have seen him being the one. But and then Lita was a Dabo girl and a waitress in Quark's bar also, and then in the show they eventually got married.
That helps because we're on an audio podcast. Your eyes lit up when said Rom and Lita, and I just was like, okay, these just seem like two people. That's it. So as a greeting, they offer Admiral Mr. Clean the ceremonial bust of good fortune, which is a giant golden bust of him. And then they also offer the ceremonial invoice for the bust of good fortune, but it's okay. They gave them the friends and family discount, so it's all good.
Wouldn't be a Ferengi if they didn't charge you for the gift they brought you.
He looks at the price and,
Oh my.
dear Lord.
Yeah, it's a lot. So they back on the Cerritos, we cut over to the storage room. The gang's all there except to Lynn. She's actually absent from this episode. So I guess they were giving her the day off.
She's had a lot to do over the last couple of episodes, particularly last episode.
Yeah,
good for her.
Last episode was her episode, so she gets the week off. It's just Tendi, Rutherford, Boimler, and Mariner hanging out. Tendi and Rutherford are working on the Sequoia, their busted up old shuttle that they've been working on since season 1. Mariner is really kind of in a mood. She looks like she's not really thrilled with her current situation, and Boimler questions her on it. She says she's fine. Ransom is supportive to everything she wants to do. She has total autonomy for the first time in years and zero complaints.
All of this sounds absolutely believable.
But it's also the worst. Can you believe it? All this free time, not getting yelled at ever. Her boss likes her. God! So Boimler pretty much says all that. Well, then why are you so pissed off? She doesn't really have an answer for it.
Stop staring at me. Shut up.
In then walks Ransom with an assignment and also unaware of how to address them as a group. He tries Lieutenant Junior grades. Lieutenant Junior's grade? Lieutenant's Junior grade, I think, is what he lands on.
That was good.
There was another show that did something similar. I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. So we're gonna have to add this to the Orion drinking game conundrum list of things that Nick knows he's seen somewhere else, but couldn't for the life of him tell you where. Ransom says that he's pulled the most coveted job in Starfleet for them. Travel guide duty.
Is that true? Or is this a thing? Or
This is the first I'm hearing of it, but it makes sense. I like it. It's one of those little in-universe things that I'm sure outside of the universe, across the Twitter sphere, people have probably asked 1,000 times.
what's a
Hey,
Twitter?
you shush. I like the idea that, throughout the years, when Starfleet visits a planet, they send an officer or two down to sample the local wares and then put together a report so they can add it to the travel guide.
I do love that it was referred to as like a travel guide instead of it just saying, "Hey, just report back to us what you see."
Here are the best things to do when on vacation to Ferenginar. But it's been a while since Starfleet's been to Ferenginar, so this thing needs updating. So attendees never heard of travel guide duty, and Mariner thought it was just a myth. But Ransom explains that Starfleet has a travel guide for all habitable planets, and the file for Ferenginar hasn't been updated in years, so he needs them to update it by going to the planet and seeing the sights. Hashtag mandatory fun. Mariner is psyched. This means Starfleet's going to foot the bill on every bar, restaurant, bar, pub, bar, site, bar that they want.
Could we not think of any other names for bar besides
bar, saloon, bar, pub, bar, speakeasy?
Because it's clearly 1920 Chicago.
So Boimler, he wants to know how many places they usually do, and Ransom says 4 or 5, but that's not enough for Boimler. Those are weak numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
I'm going to do 40. I'll pack my schedule so full that I do everything and enjoy nothing.
He runs off to create an itinerary, and Ransom is a little concerned there. He quickly moves on and turns to Tendi and Rutherford and says that they need them to pose as a married couple for reasons.
Since the Cerritos is statistically the horniest and least romantically committed crew in Starfleet,
How do you quantify horniest ship in the fleet?
I don't know, but I feel like Ransom would know, right? Like, if anyone's gonna, he's got to be on top of that.
Wait, there isn't a stat in Star Trek lore about how do you quantify the horniest ship in the fleet?
Well, the stats always get messed up because every now and again they get into a naked now situation where they get a virus that like makes them all horny, and so it really throws off the stat.
Sounds an awful lot like your excuse making.
I mean, or am I lore building? You be the judge. But
okay.
Yeah, so there are no married couples on the Cerritos. This was probably one of my only holdups in the episode. They don't exactly explain why they need them to pose as a married couple.
Is there something in the travel guide that says for couples?
I guess it's for potential honeymooners. If you want a honeymoon on Ferenginar, here's what you need to know.
Okay, and then another side question, and we may get into this a little bit later. Do people want Tendi and Rutherford to be a couple? Are we looking to ship them, or
I was going to ask you the same question. Do you ship them?
No.
I'm on Team Miglimo here. They are the two closest platonic friends on the ship. Like, I love that their relationship appears to be mostly platonic. There's been a few moments where it could have gone, it's because they like each other. And I think that it gets misconstrued by the fan base because of that one episode where Rutherford was acting all weird and he goes on a date with Lieutenant Barnes or Ensign Barnes. I don't know if you remember her rank, but in the first episode, Rutherford goes on a date with her. And then in the second season, he goes on a date with her again, even though he had already done it and they decided that they weren't a fit. And that's because Rutherford lost all his memories and he was liking different things. So Tendi thought there was something wrong with him and kind of messed up his date. So like, because she was interfering with a romantic interest, it kind of felt like, oh, she's jealous that he's going on a date with a girl. And then there was another moment later on in the season where he didn't want to delete his memories of Tendi. So like, it's little things like that say like, it could be a romance, but I've always seen all their other interactions as being strictly platonic. Like they're just best friends. They just happen to be of the opposite sex.
And take note, Hollywood, that's okay to
Okay.
leave two people of the opposite sex as just friends. There is
And
absolutely
it's the same
nothing
thing
wrong
with
with that.
Boimler, and it's the same thing with Boimler and Mariner. Like, because one's a guy, one's a girl, there's a subsect of the population that wants the two of them to get together. Although T-Lin's coming in hot. Apparently, Boimler T'Lyn fan fiction is quite the new rage that I've been hearing about. Their interaction in Vexilon was apparently enough to make people forget about Mariner and Boimler.
How can you construe that situation on Vexilon as anything other than someone being super supportive?
Exactly.
Was there something on the cutting room floor where they cut to them assuming that the volcano was going to destroy them and then them just doing it?
No, this wasn't directed by Gareth Edwards.
But
I'm not a shipper in general. I don't like doing it. I like the show to give me the if they want to give me a romance, fine, but like I get super annoyed if two characters are always just friends and then suddenly because ratings go down they become lovers, because that word bums me out unless it's between cheese and pizza. Anyways, I don't like the shipping idea, but Rutherford and Tendi love the idea of getting to pretend to be a couple. And henceforth, I will be referring to them as Tendyford whenever they do anything together. They think it's going to be fun. They love their assignment and they leave giggling about it. So Mariner then asks Ransom if he pulled strings to get them such a cushy assignment. And he says yes. And well, it annoys her because he's so handsome.
obviously. We next see our team flying down to the planet in a shuttle. We get to see an animated version of the map painting that they used all the time in Deep Space Nine, I guess. Ferengi is, of course, always raining. Is it?
It is.
Why? That does.
Every time we've seen it's always been raining. It's the one thing. Like, listen, man, Luke Skywalker's planet was all desert. Then there was that all snow planet. Then there was that all beautiful green planet. Why not an all raining planet?
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Don't pay no attention to the fact that I used Star Wars planets to describe why Star Trek planets are the way that they are.
All the Star Wars people are going to hate us when we talk about Ahsoka. Anyways, as they disembark from the shuttle, Mariner describes it as what heaven would look like if God was stupid, which I laughed so hard that I think I woke my daughter up. Boimler can't wait to haggle at the Museum of Gambling and gamble next door at the Museum of Haggling.
Naturally.
Yeah. They all part ways and Mariner goes to meet a friend. Boimler...
I have to squeeze an unforgiving amount of experiences into my day.
While Tendyford heads to the hotel to find the honeymoon suite. You know, Mariner teases them that they aren't talking like normal people and no one will buy that they're married, but they disagree.
We sound natural, right?
Totally. We got married at a wedding.
As they're waiting in line, they start goofing around telling each other stereotypical couple things that they can't wait to do. Ruthy wants to wake her up as if she looks to be having a nightmare. Tendi wants to yell at a waiter to take back Ruthy's food when they've made it wrong.
That's a good woman right there.
Okay, that was just what I was about to ask, is that if you get the wrong food or if your food doesn't taste good, are you somebody who sends it back?
Yeah, we aren't yell at the waiter kind of people.
Yeah, I'm not a yell at the waiter type of person, and if something is wrong, it's got to be pretty egregious for me to say something to the waiter. But then Tenderford starts escalating it to more serious things. So Rutherford isn't going to feel weird about sharing Tendy's toothbrush because their gums are in a partnership. I don't think I've ever been in any relationship where I've intentionally shared a toothbrush with anybody.
I totally understand what Rutherford is saying, but I'm sorry. Your toothbrush is yours. My toothbrush is mine. And never the twain shall meet.
My house is my house. Has our its contents.
Yes. And Tendi is going to wear her gym shorts around the apartment with nothing up top because who cares about nudity with our situation? This throws off Rutherford a bit, and then Tendi, also a little unsure, says jokingly, "Sure, I love my husband." And Rutherford replies, "I love you too." And they both immediately stop and blush. And this kind of confused me because with platonic friends, I don't have a problem saying that I love some of my platonic friends, but then got weird. And now I'm wondering if this is something that they're trying to force to ship.
I don't know. I feel like you could be jokey with your friends, but like Tendi did kind of go a little far with it. I'll just walk around topless in the apartment. Ha ha ha. And Rutherford is really like, oh, okay.
You do that. You do
And
that.
I think that might be the first time Rutherford ever actually thought about Tendi with her top off.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't appear to be something that's ever crossed his mind. And as soon as he did, he was like, "Oh no, I had a thought that I shouldn't have had."
They made each other a little awkward, and Tendi suggests they could just go back to the ship. But before Rutherford can finish agreeing, Ferengi pulls out a megaphone to announce that they are special VIPs. So confetti falls from the ceiling, everybody starts clapping, and they get a giant bow with a heart placed around them. I don't like to be recognized for things,
no.
and yeah, that would just be a bit much.
But you gotta think, on Ferenginar, everything's gotta cost so much money. So like I would hope that the amenities that you're paying for are over the top and outlandish if you're gonna do it. And amenities you're paying for being outlandish is the name of the game as we head up to Boimler's room, and he's inspecting all of the stuff in there. There's the for-profit minibar, the for-profit toilet.
Like, are we talking like a coin-operated toilet?
That's what I would assume, yes.
A special add-on for a bidet?
You drop the kids off at the pool. The kids stick around unless you plug in some latinum into the toilet, and then you get to flush. And of course, there's the machine that charges you to pay for the toilet and the minibar. So
obviously,
they're of course doing double duty there. And good news, the TV works.
Oh, thank God! Thank God.
And Boimler rates it a 9 out of 10, which I immediately thought he either works for EA or IGN, because a 9 out of 10 for something that's charging you microtransactions out the ass could only be one of those two companies. So he's about to head out to the Museum of Bribery when a commercial comes on the view screen, and he's delighted by this. In the Federation, we don't have commercials because in a post-scarcity society, there's no need to try and sell you something on the television. So he sits down, and what does he see but it's a soda commercial. Young, small-lobed Ferengi boy drinks some cola, and his earlobes grow twice as large, and they just pop out of his head. He puts on some sunglasses. At that moment, next to him, an attractive Ferengi woman who is already snuggling with a big, hunky Ferengi man sees the boy with the soda and his newly enlarged lobes, and she kicks the big man she's been snuggling to the curb, right into the pool, actually, and yells at him, "You're fired." She then wraps herself around this young Ferengi, and the narrator of the commercial says,
Sluggo Cola. This happens to everyone who drinks it.
Feels like a very 1980s advertisement.
Yeah, I immediately got Slurms McKenzie vibes from Futurama.
Slurm! It's highly addictive!
Because the cola looks like it, the mascot on the cola, which we see so many times later. It looks like it's an homage to that. So I really enjoyed this commercial. Boimler is absolutely delighted by this commercial. He laughs and he finds it so amusing that they just lie to you.
Just wait until he, hears stuff from politicians.
Oh, just wait. So Boimler goes to leave, but before he can turn the TV off, a TV show comes on called Pog-and-Dar, Cop Landlords. And so he's immediately drawn in and he sits down to watch. I love this. I love the whole idea. On Ferenginar, they are all about making television shows like this. That little extra peek behind the curtain of their society, that you would be a cop and a landlord.
It makes the financial implications of that just all the more great, that you're not only a cop, but you're also collecting money from your tenants. as well. So we leave Boimler with his TV, and we cut to Mariner, who walks into a restaurant, and we get to see the return of Quimp. What's Quimp been up to? Do we not know?
Well, we haven't seen him since. My assumption
has he
is
been
business.
has been business things. He waves her to his booth and congratulates her on her extra half pip.
Congratulations! I never thought you'd dig your way out of crashing that Oberth.
She starts complaining about how Ransom has been treating her so well, and Quimp teases her about how it sounds like such a nightmare that someone treats you well. And she orders some drinks from a passing waiter, and as he leaves, she takes a shot from a glass that wasn't there a second ago, which freaks out Quimp.
I also love she then throws the shot glass away, and you hear this guy in the background go, "Hey!" And then later on in the episode, someone throws something else, and you hear that same guy go, "Hey!"
We cut to the Toronto, so negotiations are in full swing after the payment of the ceremonial invoice. Rom immediately changes the subject to baseball. He loves baseball.
American pastime.
Sure, yeah, American pastime in deep space. So then he says that even though he used to be a humble bartender, he wonders if he can make the numbers of the proposal different. Admiral Mr. Clean,
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
isn't sure what he means by different. And as somebody who's been in sales for a long time, yeah, stuff like this happens a lot. I get it, but that doesn't change the fact also that it's very frustrating when stuff like this happens. But hey, it's all part of the negotiation. It's all part of the process. Lita gives Rom a baseball and asks for a sidebar with the Admiral. So she explains that Rom isn't the shrewdest business type, and he just likes to feel involved. If they can open the document and let Rom shuffle around some of the numbers, he'll feel like he accomplished something. The Admiral thinks he's picking up what she's putting down, but Freeman sees right through this ploy. She tells the Admiral that this is a classic dumb cop, reasonable cop routine. The contract is locked, and if we open it, we could ruin everything. So he interrupts her and indicates that Rom is acting like a child. Rom throws some food on the wall, pretending to play baseball. And the Admiral tells Rom that he's opened up the contract. Rom can show him the numbers that seem wrong, and they can fix them together. Compromise. This evokes a sly grin from Rom and Lita immediately dives into very specific paragraph and subsection of the agreement. Freeman looks annoyed as hell.
Sure does. Poor Freeman this whole episode. She's just sitting there taking it. I'm so glad that she eventually gets her day in court, as it were.
Yes,
So
and it was quite a good move.
we go back down to Boimler, and he's still sitting there watching TV in his room. He hasn't even unpacked. He's just sitting on the edge of the bed holding everything that he was. Hey, he's still watching the Two Landlord Cops show. They're in the process of finding a resident for having a pet larger than the lease allows. The pet owner pulls a phaser and blasts one of them before getting shot himself.
You just surrendered your deposit and your life.
And the cop on the ground says I'm not going to make it. And his partner tells him to just hold on. But first, he needs to enjoy the crisp, refreshing taste of a Sluggo Cola. And we cut back to Boimler, who is absolutely loving this.
They put commercials in the shows? It's like mind control.
At this moment, they show him on the bed, and above him, behind him on the wall, there is a painting of a mountain that looks suspiciously like the Paramount logo. And as he comments on the commercial, you see the stars in the painting twinkle, and I died. I absolutely died.
Well played. Very, very good. You understood the assignment.
Oh my God, I swear, if I have to see that weird Korean zombie movie trailer in front of my Star Trek episodes one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. We get it, Paramount. You want us to watch it. Guess what? I'm not going to.
There's a fair amount of stuff on Paramount Plus that I'm just not interested in.
So the show continues, and the one who was shot is now being blackmailed into paying his partner, who will tell everyone he supported tenants' rights if he doesn't pay up. The injured man agrees, compliments his thieving partner on being so conniving, and then dies. It's the end, question mark. So with the cop show over, Boimler once again gets ready to leave and go about on his itinerary to travel to as many locations as possible. But just as he's getting up, another show comes on called Will They, Won't They? A workplace sitcom where everyone is secretly in love with each other.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, and this is where I started to question a little bit more if they really want Tendifer to be a thing. Because I wondered, are they trying to really tell me that workplace comedy and they want everybody to be in a relationship?
So you think that they're laying the seeds in another scene to make it seem more palatable later?
That is what I thought at first. Yeah, it just seemed too much of a nod for me not to notice that.
All I could think of was it's the Ferengi office. So that's all I saw. But I mean, the end of the episode indicates that Tendi and Rutherford, at the very least, are not there yet. Although they still screw around at the. I don't know. I think the show enjoys the ambiguity of it all. Like, will they, won't they, could they, couldn't they? Sure. The answer to all of your questions is yes. Boimler sees this show is on. He's not going to be fooled by this schlocky entertainment. At least he thinks he's not. At least, no, he's going to sit down and he's going to watch it. And he's going to watch so much of it. Because, he's got to do the research. You got to make sure that other Starfleets know not to fall for this ploy of B-rate entertainment.
Plus, we've all been there where we put on the TV, something turns on, and then all of a sudden, 4 hours later, it's like, oh, crap. I mean, that was the nice thing about DVDs, is that when you put the DVD in of a TV show, after 6 episodes or so, it's it. That's done. And you got to make a decision. You either need to get up and switch the disc, or you do what I did, which is to get a 5-disc DVD. Just rotate.
You're living in the year 3023.
Back in the honeymoon suite, Rutherford and Tendi are hanging out, still looking a bit uncomfortable, debating the decor of the room, consisting primarily of hearts. So Rutherford suggests that the universal symbol of love should be kissing faces or gorgeous green eyes. Again, this is another thing where now I'm just plain confused.
I think at this point now, they're so flustered from earlier that they don't know what to do now. They both thought about it for reals. It was a game, and then they both felt some movement down below, and they're like, oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
And so now that's all they can think about. And of course, they're just getting more and more uncomfortable.
So they're interrupted by a Ferengi guest and the titular character of the episode, Parth, who is the concierge. Which poetry right there, it just rolls off the tongue. He hands them a pair of outfits and tells them to get changed. So when they come out, Rutherford is in a snazzy white suit with a black short and orange bow tie. Spiffy as hell.
There is.
Looks beautiful with that. Bow ties are making a comeback, and I love it.
As Mariner would say, it was a big old piece of ham steak.
So Tendi, though, on the other hand, emerges wearing a gorgeous black sparkly dress with a cross-front neckline and a little Klingon boob window.
They both look great.
Yeah. This reminds me a little bit, because when I host trivia, I just read the questions. I don't write any of the questions. Occasionally I'll change up a question, but I usually just read them. And there's usually a lyric question. And sometimes the lyrics that I have to read are ridiculous. And sometimes they're funny. And this week I had to read the lyrics from the song Too Close by Next, which is about what happens to a dude when he's dancing too close to a woman and what happens. It's one of those songs that as a child, I probably shouldn't have sang, but I enjoyed the song.
What happens when a man dances too close to a woman? Didn't you have 6 inches for the Lord?
Buddy, if you need to ask, you need Jesus in your life.
Isn't that what Jesus is there? The Lord is Jesus. 6 inches for the Lord. Does that mean something else?
Again, I've derailed us. I'm sorry.
Well, I haven't been struck by lightning, so I think we're good.
Yes, you haven't been smote. They both once again made each other uncomfortable, and they're contemplating each other's new outfits and how nice they both look. Parth informs them that it's time for their photo session, which every honeymoon suite out there offers clearly a photo session. I'm sure this would make a killing
Probably.
because it's not enough to drop, I'm sure, hundreds or thousands of dollars on wedding photography. What better way to encapsulate your honeymoon?
Especially when they pull out the lingerie part of the evening.
Anyways, after taking many photos,
Publicly display that affection.
some sweet, some incredibly silly, Parth wants to move to the lingerie shoot and holds up a pair of Madonna cones and a giant purple jockstrap man thong. They both scream and then they run out the door.
Yeah, they did. We cut back over to Mariner and Quimp. There's a nice establishing shot before we see what they're doing. They're at the public library. Naturally, when you're seeing the sights, you go to the library, rent some books. It's got a nice glowing neon sign, books, books, books. So you know what you're gonna get into there. No, it's a casino. Mariner and Quip are playing at a Dabo table. Mariner tells Quip,
Ferengi public libraries go hard.
and there were books lining the walls, but otherwise Quimp indicates that no one's read a book from a library in like hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
She starts pounding back as much alcohol as she possibly can, and even Quimp notices this, and he's a little like, "Hey, slow down there, buddy. Maybe don't drink so much," because he's trying to get out of there. He's like, "It's late. Let's call it a night." But she insists that they keep going. They haven't even made it to the part of the night where they regret their decisions. As she's saying that, a large Ferengi bumps into Quimp by accident and tries to apologize. He's being really sweet, actually, but Mariner loses it on him. She gets all up in this guy's face, and he's just trying to enjoy a nice night out with his biker gang. And he indicates to a group of surly-looking individuals. Mariner doesn't care. She decks a guy right in the face, and that sets an entire brawl throughout the entire bar. Everybody's just beating the crap out of everyone else, much to Quimp's dismay.
I mean, we've all had a friend like that. Back up on the Toronto, Lita and Rom are wiping the floor with Admiral Mr. Clean. They suggest they finish the official signing at Rom's palace for a great photo op. Freeman is seeing right through it all, though. She pleads with the Admiral not to fall for it. They are just toying with him and getting him to agree to anything. But the Admiral insists that he can do this. He refuses to go to the Federation Council with a big fat L on the diplomacy mission that had a W written all over it. Once again, it's annoyed Freeman eyes until the end of the scene. And rightfully so. As somebody who's been in business, this should be a slam dunk. Nope, this just got complicated in a hurry. It's frustrating.
So back on the planet, Tenderford are having dinner at the Starfleet Experience restaurant. And I've got like a freaking book of references for this later on. But needless to say, this restaurant is modeled after the Star Trek Experience. I believe it was a traveling show, perhaps. But I know that there was one in Vegas for a long time. But the Starfleet Experience restaurant, it's like a Planet Hollywood, essentially, but for Starfleet.
There used to be a Planet Hollywood at our local shopping mall that lasted for about 5 months before they realized this was a bad idea.
I remember Planet Hollywoods being the coolest freaking places as a kid. I loved them. You walk in and freaking the Terminator is sitting there and like all the fun little props on the walls. And I just thought it was the best thing. But then, you go back as an adult and you're just like, oh, these are really cheap restaurants. Well, it's Quark's the Starfleet Experience. And my assumption is that the co-owner is Quarknold Schwarzenferengi. So The waiters are all dressed in Starfleet uniforms. Tendi calls out that they're the old Valor uniforms that used to catch fire all the time. You could see a ton of TOS episode references in the background. They've got a bunch I'll cover later, but this place is pretty cool. It's the total package. I also really enjoyed they had the TNG theme playing in the background as like the restaurant's ambient music. It was nice.
So if this restaurant was real, how often would you go to it?
If it was convenient, at least once a month. Like we go to Red Robin on the reg, so because the kids love it. If there was a place where there was a freaking Voyager and Enterprise hanging over us while we ate, surrounded by movie props from Star Trek, Red Robin would never see us again.
I want to go to there.
Tenderford are sitting at their table and they start talking about just everything that's been going on and how they kind of feel weird. They want to take a break and just go back to being friends and not pretending to be a couple. Rutherford is so glad that Tendi said something because he agrees. No sooner do they get to take that sigh of relief than Parth pops up.
Hello, lovers!
To give them the deluxe romance package. Just as Rutherford is about to come clean to Parth that they were all just pretending the whole time and they're not really a married couple, a red alert sounds. We turn to another couple in the restaurant. It turns out they have been defrauding the restaurant by pretending to be a couple. These monsters. They are accosted by two Ferengi dressed in Starfleet security uniforms. We're told that as a punishment for what they consider to be one of Ferenginar's most heinous felony, these two are now going to be taken to the subaquatic sulfur mines, where they will live out the rest of their days performing hard labor because they tried to get a discount. So after he takes care of those two liars, Parth returns to Tenderford's table and asks what they were about to admit before he was interrupted to sentence those two people to a life of misery. A little freaked out, Tendi declares, "We are more in love than ever before."
That's right, Smoopy.
Parth is pleased, and he requests their most romantic meal possible to be served as the waiters bring out these two mini sexy chocolate statues of Tendi and Rutherford wearing the lingerie that they didn't want to do the photo shoot in. This may sound weird. I know a couple episodes back, I professed my undying love for Tendi with her cool girl attitude. I want a sexy chocolate Rutherford statue. Him with his legs crossed and his finger over his lips and the adorable little stare. I want it. I loved it. It was my favorite part of the episode.
Maybe a Christmas present.
I wouldn't say no. Parth informs them that the package also includes, when they're done, they have to say something they find attractive about one another, and their chairs have built-in lie detectors, so they know that it's true.
Seems a bit extreme, but
right?
Okay.
I love how all of a sudden now it's like everything they do is just to try and make sure that they're not lying.
So while Tenderford are forced to consume the sexy visage of their best platonic friend in chocolate form, Mariner and Quimp are strolling down the street of Ferenginar towards the Dominion War Memorial. Mariner looks like she got hit by a bus. Uniform's all messy, hair's out of sort, bruises on her eyes and cheek. So she thanks Quimp for bailing her out of jail and then promptly throws up over the balcony. So Quimp is really giving her the business, though. He's super pissed that he had to bribe a ton of people to keep her indiscretions quiet. Mariner doesn't see why this is a big deal.
Hey, you know me, man. I'm a wild rogue living on the edge of chaos. I sit weird in chairs. You can't predict me.
Quimp agrees that she's always had a bit of a little chaos demon, but it usually means something. So it feels like she's angry about nothing, which, she's just complaining for the sake of complaining a little bit, and is just looking to pick fights to intentionally get herself hurt. So Mariner tries to fire back by saying that he's wanting to call it quits early and he isn't the friend she used to know. He agrees he's changed because he's grown up and he is no longer stuck in a perpetual state of immature rebellion. That
was the
felt
gut
like
punch
it
right
hurt.
there.
Yeah. So we've all been there with a friend where you say something that you know is like you either unintentionally or you if you're being a jerk about it, you intentionally know that that's really gonna hurt. That was definitely it here. So he doesn't understand why Mariner is acting this way. She has all the support she's ever wanted, but she's still picking fights and acting out. So Mariner tries to deny it, but realizes that her argument has lost steam and Quimp is making sense. Quip tells her he doesn't want her to get hurt. He then adds because if he loses any more money bailing her out, they will have to put his name on this ridiculous monument. He indicates the Dominion War Memorial, but then the camera pans out to show that it's a sober farewell to lost profits. This was great. And to see a memorial like this to lost profits made me giggle a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, that was really funny. Of course, that you go, oh, this is for all the people who have died, but no,
So much lost income. Is there no justice in this galaxy?
Yeah, just a creative way to definitely do that. So Mariner is impressed how the Ferengi always manage to keep things quote unquote on brand. And she apologizes to Quimp. Quimp tells her she needs to figure out whatever's eating her up inside. They hug, and as Quimp departs, Mariner slowly looks down.
I believe that this has been a long time coming. The show has been kind of hinting at this, and I know she knows exactly what's eating her up inside. I had a theory that it was Dominion War related because we know a little bit about Mariner's past. She used to be on DS9. She was stationed with Riker at one point. He was like her mentor. We know that she was in Starfleet during the Dominion War. Quimp even says earlier that she crashed an Oberth, which is a type of starship. Like what exactly happened in Mariner's past that has really set her on this like crazy chaotic I don't care about anything but myself situation, because she even indicates in previous seasons that she didn't like getting close to people because she would lose them by going to other ships when she get demoted or get kicked off another ship. I always kind of wondered if there was more to it than that. And I think that maybe that is what we're leading to here.
You know, now that you kind of mentioned that, if I were to put my conspiracy theory hat on, maybe that has something to do with this mysterious ship that's blowing things up. Maybe that's how they tie all this together. That is where I will stake my claim into this, is that we will get some resolution. You know, this season we got some backstory and info on Tendi. Maybe this is the season that we get a little bit of backstory and context for Mariner. Maybe it's somebody that I don't know, because this has come up a bunch of times this season where Mariner has kind of pouted and kind of didn't like that she's been promoted and she's been supported and everything like that. Maybe the person that supported her the most during this time in her life has come back and is enacting revenge.
Maybe. Or I was kind of going the other way with it. I was thinking that the last time that she was supported like this, maybe she did something. Maybe the ship she crashed, maybe she ended up getting people that she cared for killed. That's why she doesn't want to be promoted. Every time she gets promoted, something bad happens to her, so she gets herself demoted before that can. Like you can't be in charge of a ship if you're the lowest person on the ship. But I also agree. I hope that by the end of this season we get a big reveal moment for Mariner, which kind of opens up more of her past to us.
You'll get nothing unlike it.
So we head back to the restaurant. Tenderford are finishing up their chocolates, and their table has been raised so that the entire place can see them eat it. It's time for the compliments. Rutherford shakily compliments Tendy's hair. He really loves her hair. The lie detector chair lights up green. So good job, Rutherford. You passed. It's Tendy's turn, and she shouts, "I also like your hair too." And also gets a green confirmation heart, and their table slowly descends. So Parth congratulates them for completing their all-inclusive newlywed discount package. All that's left to do is consummate the marriage. Of course, this freaks them out, and Parth realizes what he did there. He's like, just kidding. You don't have to do it in front of us. And then he points over to these two guys wheeling over a shuttlecraft with a bed full of like pink hearts and like a disco ball. And he goes, "You do it in the blind box where we can hear you." This is where the episode takes a wild left turn. And my assumption was just that they were going to then go into this box and have to do like the thing they do in Easy A where everyone's listening and they have to pretend.
Now grunt, and make it convincing. Oh, yeah.
And like they're banging on the wall. And I'm like, this has got to be where the episode is going. But instead, Dr. Miglimo shows up and he's being seated at the restaurant. He's telling the waiter that he's in charge of updating his planet's official foodie archives. You see, the bird people created space travel to seek out strange new meals. As Parth is pushing Tenderford towards the blind box, they pass Miglimo and he greets them, telling their waiter that these are the two closest platonic friends on his ship. This, of course, Parth does not like. The red alert sounds and security shows up immediately when he calls them. It seems like the jig is up, but thankfully Tendi is great on her feet. She lays into Miglimo, yelling at him, how dare he call them only friends? He's been clearly trying to break them up all along. And Rutherford, it takes him a second to figure out what's going on, but he yes ends Tendi so well in this moment. But in the weirdest way possible. He says to Miglimo, yeah, you know that we both love you. And of course, Miglimo is so put off by this. Rutherford continues, just because the Ferengi newlywed discount can only be used by two out of the three of us doesn't mean that Miglimo doesn't have the right to ruin him and Tendi's marriage. So Rutherford's version of the events are that he and Tendi and the bird doctor are in a throuple together, and Miglimo is just like touched, but also confused. He's not really sure why they love him, but he's so happy to be loved. Like all good improv partners, Tendi then plays into the change like a champ and agrees, of course they love Miglimo. It's obvious he's incredibly attracted to both of them. But now that she sees him there, she wants a divorce so that she could be with Miglimo only. Rutherford, of course, then yells at Miglimo for ruining their marriage. This is a soap opera that's definitely entertaining the crowd. It's also enough for Parth to get them to stand down the security, giving Tenderford a chance to then head back to the ship so they can never speak again and they get the hell out of there. Miglimo is just completely floored by what happened. Parth offers him one of their homewrecker packages, which he is delighted by.
You don't have to throw up in my mouth twice. Let's do it.
Thus ends the tale of Tenderford.
In Ram and Lita's palace, Lita is going over the terms of the new membership application while Ram sits on his throne. So the deal is now wildly out of control. The Ferengi get the use of any Starfleet vessel whenever they want, whether they join the Federation or not. Admiral Mr. Clean is quite frustrated at this point, but reluctantly agrees. Seeing the weakness, Ram whispers to Lita, and she tells the Admiral that Ram also requires him to start dancing. So defeatedly, he obliges. And he's got some moves. I'm not gonna lie. Good for him. So
He sure did.
Freeman takes this opportunity to jump in. She updates the treaty with all of their demands, and she added a $1 billion Latinum signing bonus. So this gives Lita and Ram pause. So why are they giving this up? This seems like it's too good to be true. Freeman just wants to wrap this up quickly before the Admiral signs away the entire fleet.
If they can use a Federation starship whenever they want, whether they join or not, sounds like he kind of already did.
Sounds like he kind of already did. So Lita assumes that there's a catch, and she's absolutely right. So Freeman has added one provision. The Ferengi have to bring in one additional member planet in order to receive any of the signing bonus. That sounds pretty straightforward. So the Admiral freaks out. That request is so easy to complete, but Rom quickly grabs the agreement and signs, gloating that they have so many planets in Ferengnar's debt that it will be child's play to get a new member. So Freeman says, no worries, we're done here. They aren't getting anything. Rom stops her and says they owe the Ferengi a fortune, but Freeman indicates they didn't read the fine print. They didn't read those drastic terms and conditions. So
Right.
Freeman didn't say which planet. Kronos, the Klingon homeworld, is the planet that they need to recruit to the Federation. So Rom and Lita are floored. That's impossible. There's no way that this can be done. Freeman knows this, though, and she reminds them of the 8th rule of acquisition. Small print leads to large risk. And Rom is impressed. She swindled them like a true Ferengi, and as much as they would like to join the Federation, the Grand Nagus can't sign with a bunch of suckers and rubes, knowing that there are people in Starfleet that respect the Ferengi culture, allows him to trust the Federation and signs the treaty as it was originally constituted. So Admiral Mr. Clean then turns to Freeman and apologizes and thanks her for being so on the ball. Back in Freeman's ready room, she is completing her log regarding the mission and how it feels like a good start as she tosses the ceremonial bust of good fortune, rightfully so, in the trash.
Yeah, get rid of that. We don't need that. The button on the episode is we're back in the Cerritos storage room with Mariner looking quite glum as Ransom walks in and asks her how guidebook duty was, if it was as awesome as it sounded. And she whines about being in a fight and having to take out a predatory loan from a close friend. Oh, and she can feel her hangover in her spine, which this is my indication that Mariner is in her got to be in like her late 20s, early 30s, because as I'm approaching 40, I don't need a hangover to feel it in my spine. My entire spine right now has a hangover, and I didn't do any drinking. So. Ransom asks Tenderford how the couple's retreat went, and they admit the romance did not go well, Enterprise. They did not do a very good job of faking their relationship. It was just outside of their comfort zone. Turns out they have no natural chemistry. And after they say this, Rutherford asks if she wants to reroute a phase conduit. She then jumps into his arms, and he carries her over the threshold of the Jeffries tube as they squeeze into a small, tight space, and he lays on top of her with their legs intertwined as they get to work.
Now this makes sense.
This makes sense, right?
The show is just continually screwing with the audience at this point. So just then, Ransom realizes that Boimler is missing. So he calls him on the FaceTime, and we cut to Boimler.
Did you do too many locations? Are you in need of aid?
He's in his underpants, wrapped in a blanket, with a 5 o'clock shadow and bags under his very bloodshot eyes. Ransom asks if he bit off more than he can chew, and if he needs assistance, and Boimler apologizes. He didn't get to go to any of the places he wanted to go. He's been binge watching Ferengi television for the last 8 hours, and he never left his room once. But Ransom's okay with it. He's actually proud of Boimler. He has a problem typically with the getting out of his own way and going with the flow, so Ransom's just glad that he was able to do just that. But that's not all. He's informed Boimler that he's authorized the local authorities to drag him out of there.
Just go limp. Don't fight them.
Just then, a giant Ferengi with an energy whip bursts into the room and runs towards him. We hear Random admit that he really likes that lieutenant, and we get Boimler screams to credits. And that is our episode. What did you think, Mike? Did you like this week's episode?
It was fine. I enjoyed moments from this. I'll admit I found myself a little lost at times during this episode.
Wondering if that might be the case.
So that probably contributed to it, but overall, I would say this is middle of the road for the season. What'd you think?
This one is actually one of my favorites of the season so far, mainly because it made me laugh so much. And I realized it as we were going back through, like I read out all the scripts for the Star Trek for a little peek behind the pod curtain. And I started to realize, oh shoot, I put a lot of in-universe references in your end of the scripts, which I usually try to avoid. It just didn't occur to me, like there are a lot of in jokes in this episode that if you are unaware of previous seasons of Star Trek, then you probably wouldn't get a lot of it. So I found this one to be absolutely hilarious. I was like giggling my butt off the entire time, but I can see where this might have maybe given some people some pause. I think it's funny, the Tendi and Rutherford stuff. I don't ship them, as we said, but I like that the show is willing to at least explore that possibility and then also conclude that I'm correct and that we shouldn't ship them. And I like the Mariner stuff. I think that it's good that we got that extra bit of detail there. And hopefully it's a setup for the finale, because we typically get a good Mariner therapy breakthrough at the end of each season. This is the setup for that. I'm going to be very pleased. But yeah, I rated this one a little higher. Maybe I can help you a little bit better by shedding some light on all the so many references that I found in a segment we like to call I Understood That Reference.
How can you not know that Spider-Man first appeared in 1962's classic Amazing Fantasy number 15?
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
Say the line, Bart.
I understood that reference.
In this segment, I will do my best to compile all the references, jokes, and Easter eggs that I can find. This was originally to show off how cool I am, but after a recent basketball conversation involving Eric Durant, I'm not so sure cool is the right word. Really, it's to help Mike understand why I think the F is so funny and to get his perspective. So first off the bat, Max Grodenchik and Chase Masterson have come back to reprise their roles of Rom and Lita. So they got them back, which was nice. Nice to hear their voices again. At the beginning of the episode, the one Ferengi says that Rom could be the next Lawns. And that was a reference that I absolutely did not understand. And rightfully so. Lawns was a nose flute player, a famous Ferengi nose flute player, only ever referenced in the DS9 companion book written by the showrunners Ira Steven Behr. I found that to be a fun little bit of trivia that is now official canon now because it was put in the show. Admiral Mr. Clean, says that it would be like going to Moab 4 and going outside of the dome. And Freeman just looks at him and he goes, "You really would only get that joke if you've been to Moab 4." And for anybody who watched The Next Generation, Moab 4 is a planet that we did visit. It was from the episode called Masterpiece Society. There was a dome on this really inhospitable world, but inside the dome was like a paradise. And the people in the dome were all like genetically engineered to be like the perfect society. And when the Enterprise came, I can't remember what the disaster problem was, but like they needed to do something to like reinforce the shield. Some of the people wanted to leave and their leaders wouldn't let them, because if even one person left, their society would crumble because everyone was specifically designed to do a specific job. So that was a fun episode. Boimler mentions to Mariner, "You're weathering that stem bolt so much it probably can't self-seal anymore."
So that's a stem bolt, a self-sealing stem bolt.
This is another line that I just thought was hilarious, and it's a reference to DS9. There's an episode where Jake and Nog acquire like 1,000 self-sealing stem bolts.
It's just that my Uncle Quark really needed some stem bolts.
You mean self-sealing stem bolts?
And they're trying to sell them to make a profit.
It's top-grade merchandise. You can't find a better stem bolt in the sector.
They're going everywhere trying to get rid of these things. They end up creating their own company called the No J Consortium. By the end of the episode, they end up doing like this like trade down the aisle, like you ever see the guy on YouTube? He's like, I'm going to start with this paperclip, and by the end, I'm going to own a house by simply trading. By the end of the episode, they end up owning like a large plot of land on Bajor, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's a lot of stumbles.
So then we mentioned earlier, Mariner crashed an Oberth-class starship to get to Moda. This is a weird-looking ship that has been seen a few times throughout Star Trek. Viewers of the show will be able to look at the screen right now. I've got a picture of it up, and you can see it's a goofy looking ship. Like the saucer is like connected to the little nacelles, and it's got like a little canoe on the bottom of it. Like
It looks weird.
Yeah, it's a fun little ship. Like I love that about old Star Trek. They just made the weirdest ship designs, and they were just like, yeah, no, that's a ship we made. So as we entered Ferengi, there was a establishing shot of all of the different businesses around the place that I thought were funny. There was one that said acquire Pour Homme, which is actually a Versace fragrance for men. There was a movie theater playing Latinum Lost, which I assume is a play on Paradise Lost. There was a building called the Maximum Nomax Rub Dungeon. I'm just kind of curious as to what goes on around there. Of course, Quark couldn't just leave his business dealings with adults. He also opened up Uncle Quark's youth casino.
The uncle there just makes it creepy.
That slayed me. I love that. There's also the hotel they were staying at was called the Loeb's Lodge, and there was the Hall of Fame gift shop. Hall of Fame coming soon. Sluggo Cola, I mentioned it had to be a reference to Slurms McKenzie from Futurama.
Wham, wazzle, let's party!
During the Landlord Cop show, there was a dog with a horn. That dog first appeared, that alien dog first appeared in the original series, The Enemy Within episode. It was just a little floofy dog that they put a horn on him, like a string. Because that's what passes for an alien in Star Trek. Mariner and Quip were playing Dabo, which is a popular game that is in Quark's Bar in DS9. In Quark's Federation Experience Bar and Grill, you got to see Carl's Hole, the city on the edge of forever monument thing, where that's the episode where Kirk and Spock and McCoy go back in time. And it's a very, very popular episode because of the moral conundrum that it places on Kirk at the end. It also made an appearance in Star Trek Discovery, where we learned that the monument also could turn into a person named Carl, and that's why we call it Carl's Hole. So then in the background of there was a giant white monster, which if you watch Lower Decks, you'll know is from the Mugato Gumato episode. That's a Mugato or a Gumato or a Mugatu. They have so many pronunciations. It's also very strange and inconsistent. But that was a creature originally in the original series. I think Kirk got poisoned by one, and Bones had to save him. There was also another alien creature with a giant spear, like black fur in the background. And it's in one of the TOS episodes. I gave up looking because I couldn't figure out which one, and I didn't really care. I just know it's in there. I want to say it was the cage, but I don't remember. So sorry, dear listener. I was a little lazy this week. The server was dressed as Spock. The security officers were dressed in TNG security uniforms, and of course the giant model of the Voyager and the Big D hanging over the dining area was a nod to the Star Trek experience in the real world, where they have those exact models hanging over the top. And then the consummation blind box room was shaped like a shuttlecraft. In the restaurant, you might have also noticed a naked Ferengi woman in the background. I already talked about how that was a thing on Ferenginar. Now I guess it's more of a cultural thing that it's no longer a law that women have to be naked. So I guess some like to just be naked because that's just how it was always done. But they actually have Quark's mom to thank for that. the very first episode of Quark's mom, they call her Moogie, and they have to go back home to Ferenginar, where they find out that their mother has started wearing clothes.
Mother, get undressed this instant.
And making profit for herself, which is a no-no on Ferenginar. Women can't make profits.
How dare
Kind of
they?
starts this whole cultural movement, which changes their society. It was a fun episode with the Ferengi. You got a really nice peek into what their world is like.
She's the Susan B. Anthony
She was, yeah,
of this society. Okay.
The last one I have was the energy whip used by the Ferengi to attack Boimler. In the original episode of TNG that they first appeared, they all used energy whips, and that was their weapon of choice. It was nice to see that come back, but those were all the references that I found and understood.
Most of the references that we talked about when we were doing the show recap, those are the ones that were probably the most helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the context kind of in the restaurant and just kind of around Ferengi, that was also very helpful.
So I think that leads us to our last segment, which would be to pick our favorite characters to place inside our Menaginarium in Mike and Nick's Miraculous Menaginarium attraction.
I'll take you home and lock you in a nice little cage and never, never, ever let you out.
Do you imprison everything you like?
Of course.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
The Moopsie is Narja's favorite.
Oopsie.
In this segment, we pick a character from the episode who stood out to us and belongs in a safe and wonderful home trapped behind glass, 2 windows down from the Moopsie.
Oopsie.
Mike, who was your favorite character this episode?
I'm torn because my heart really wants to say Miglimo. Like really, really does. Just the very brief moment that he was in there. And this is the second time that I kind of toyed around with that. I'm giving it to Freeman. She negotiates the treaty and outsmarts Ram and Lita, which that was a good move. Mainly because I've been there trying to help close sales with coworkers who are in over their head and don't know what they're doing. It's always nice to sometimes have an adult in the room in situations like that. So I'm giving it to Freeman, with also a slight honorable mention to Boimler as well, and the 8 hours of TV he watched.
I'm actually really glad that you picked Freeman. And rather than having a daily double today, because Freeman was mine as well, I'm actually going to pivot, give it to the sexy chocolate statue of Rutherford, because that should be forever preserved behind glass, 2 windows down from the Moopsie. I love that statue. It's amazing.
Yes, I will fully endorse that pick.
So what do we have coming up on next week's episode, Mike?
Our next episode of Star Trek Lower Decks will be season 4, episode 7, A Few Badgies More. However, that won't be our next episode in your podcast feed. Tune in on Thursday as we bring you our first episode of Loki season 2, episode 1, Ouroboros. In that episode, Loki finds himself lost to time and torn quite literally between past, present, and future. Until next time, please like, subscribe, consummate the relationship with your closest platonic friend, and rate us 5 stars on your listening app of choice. Also, you can find us on social media. I am on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Serialized at MLHilty2452.
And you can find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Jagged2319. You can also contact the show at geekspeaklouder@gmail.com or on Blue Sky at geekspeaklouder.bsky.social or by searching Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Until next time, I'm Nick Farrow.
And I'm Mike Hilty. Thank you for tuning in to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Catchphrase.
Bye, everybody. I gotta stop. I didn't realize that I wrote that funny joke. They wiped the floor, Mr. Clean. That was an accident. Sorry.